I'll never forget the first night we spent in that house. Laura and I had dreamed of leaving the cramped townhouse we rented in Columbus for years. When we finally found a place in the suburbs, a quiet street, fenced yard, enough bedrooms for Ethan and Sophie, it felt like a blessing. The house wasn't perfect. It was older, with creaky floors and faded wallpaper. But I told Laura, "That's character. We'll fix it up." The kids were excited. Ethan wanted the attic room, probably because it felt private, away from the rest of us. Sophie picked the smallest room and immediately began taping drawings on the walls. But it wasn't until the movers left and the neighborhood quieted down that I noticed the basement door. It was heavy oak, older than the rest of the house, with a tarnished brass handle and a sliding bolt at the top. When I tried to open it, the hinges groaned like they hadn't been moved in years. The stairs beyond were steep, leading into a pit of shadows. "Don't go down there without me," I told Ethan when I caught him peering in. "Basements in old houses can be dangerous. Rot, nails, wiring." Laura frowned at the door. "It feels off, doesn't it?" I laughed. "It's just a basement. Every old house has one." We unpacked late into the night and I locked the door before heading to bed. That should have been the end of it. At 3:15 a.m., I woke to the sound of a creak. At first, I thought it was Sophie crawling into our bed again, but the hall was empty. Then I heard it, an unmistakable clunk. The sound of a bolt sliding free. I got up, half asleep, and padded down the hallway. The basement door stood wide open. Cold air seeped from the blackness below, and the smell, like damp stone and rust, hit me hard. I grabbed a flashlight and went halfway down the steps, shining into the basement. Just concrete walls, shelves with dust, and a rusted old furnace crouched in the far corner like a sleeping animal. But as I turned to head back up, I swore I heard something faint, like nails scratching against concrete, quick and deliberate. I froze, listening. Silence. I shut the door, bolted it again, and told myself the wood must have swollen or the bolt was loose. Nothing to worry about. The next morning, Laura asked why I'd been up so late. "The basement door popped open," I said casually. "Bolt's probably worn out." Her face tightened. "It opened on its own?" I shrugged. "Old house. Things settle. I'll fix it." But Sophie chimed in, her little voice serious. "I don't like it, Daddy. Something's down there." I chuckled. "It's just a basement, Soph. Monsters aren't real." But the look in her eyes stayed with me. That evening, after work, I stopped by the hardware store and bought a brand new steel slide bolt. Drilled it into the frame myself. "There," I said proudly. "That door's not going anywhere now." We went to bed. At exactly 3:15 a.m., the sound woke me again. Clunk. I bolted upright. Laura whispered, "Michael." I grabbed the flashlight and crept down the hall. Sure enough, the new steel bolt lay hanging, the basement door wide open. I stood frozen, staring into the darkness. For the first time, I didn't feel alone. The next day I asked around. Our neighbor, old Mr. Harris, was watering his lawn when I walked over. "You're in the Turner place now, huh?" he said, nodding at our house. "Sturdy home, but the basement's got a reputation." "What do you mean?" I asked. He hesitated, then lowered his voice. "Family lived there back in the 70s. Husband, wife, 2 kids. One night, the father went down to the basement and never came back up. Police searched, but they never found him. A year later, the rest of the family packed up and left. Some folks say the house never let him go." I forced a laugh, but my skin prickled. "Probably just gossip." Mr. Harris looked me dead in the eyes. "Lock that door, son, and don't go down there after midnight." That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the house made me tense. Ethan stayed up playing games, Sophie tossed and turned, and Laura clutched my arm like she was waiting for something. When the clock hit 3:15, we all heard it this time. Clunk. The bolt slid. The door groaned open. Laura whispered, "Michael, don't. Please don't." But I had to. Flashlight in hand, I crept down the stairs into the basement, every step echoing. The beam cut across concrete, pipes, and shelves. Nothing, just silence and the thrum of the furnace. Then I noticed the air was colder near the far wall. My breath fogged. I reached out, and the wall felt damp, too damp for concrete. And just as I pulled my hand away, that scratching sound started again, low, deliberate, coming from inside the wall. Before I could react, something scraped against the floor behind me. I spun around, but the basement was empty. And then, the door slammed shut above me. After that night in the basement, I couldn't shake the sound of scratching in the walls. I told Laura it was probably pipes or rats. But in the back of my mind, I knew better. Concrete doesn't scratch itself. Over the next few nights, the same thing happened. 3:15 a.m. sharp, the bolt slid free, and the door creaked open. Always at the same time. Always the same sound, like something waiting just below. I replaced the bolt again, even screwed in a heavy chain. None of it mattered. The next night the chain hung loose, the door yawning open. Laura begged me to leave it alone. Sophie clung to her rabbit and cried when she heard the noises. But Ethan wanted answers. "Dad, we should set up the camera," he said one afternoon. "If it keeps opening, let's catch it." I didn't like the idea, but I didn't want to admit I was scared either. So we did it. We set up one of our old security cameras pointed straight at the basement door, recording through the night. At breakfast the next morning, Ethan was practically buzzing. "Check this out." We huddled around his laptop as the footage played. Hours of nothing, just the quiet hallway. Then, right at 3:15, clunk, the bolt slid free. The door eased open, but no one was there. Not me, not Laura, not anyone. No shadows, no hand on the bolt, just the door moving by itself. I wanted to tell myself it was rigged somehow, but the way the metal shifted, like it was being pulled from the inside, it made my stomach turn. Sophie ran from the room crying. Laura slammed the laptop shut. "Enough, Michael. We need to leave." I told her it was just a trick of old wood and bad hinges, but even I didn't believe it anymore. That night I decided to watch from the hallway myself. Ethan stayed with me, refusing to back down. Laura shut herself in our bedroom with Sophie. At 3:15 the bolt clinked, the door slid open, and from the darkness, a voice drifted up, soft, familiar. "Daddy, come downstairs, please." Ethan's face went pale. "That's Sophie." But Sophie was asleep in the next room. I'd tucked her in myself. We both froze, staring into the black stairwell. The voice came again, more insistent. "Daddy, I'm cold, help me." I forced myself to whisper, "That's not her. Don't answer it." The next day I went back into the basement. I don't know what I was looking for, proof maybe. Something to explain all this. The air felt heavier down there, like it was pressing against my chest. I ran the flashlight over the walls, the shelves, the furnace. Nothing. Then I saw it. On the far wall, near the floor. Lines carved into the concrete. At first Saint it looked like random scratches, but when I crouched closer the words took shape. "Let her come down." The letters weren't shallow. They were dug deep, like claw marks gouged into the stone. I staggered back, bile rising in my throat. Something wanted Sophie. That night Laura demanded answers. "What's going on, Michael? Why is this happening?" I told her about the carvings. Her face drained of color. "We're leaving. Tonight." But Ethan shook his head. "We can't just run. Dad, we need to know what it is." I wanted to tell him he was wrong, that nothing in the basement mattered more than keeping Sophie safe. But deep down, I knew it wouldn't stop if we left. The way the house pulled at us, the way it called her name, it wouldn't stop. At 3:15, the door opened again. This time the voice was louder. "Daddy, why won't you help me?" Laura clutched Sophie tight in her arms, rocking her as the little girl wept. Ethan looked at me, eyes wide with fear, but burning with determination. I gripped the flashlight, every instinct screaming to run. But I knew what I had to do. Tomorrow night I'm going down there. I didn't tell Laura or the kids what the carving said. I couldn't. Some part of me thought, if I didn't say the words out loud, they wouldn't be real. but they were burned into my mind. Let her come down. It wanted Sophie. That night, we tried to live normally. Dinner, dishes, homework. Sophie sat curled on the couch with her rabbit, eyes glassy. Ethan paced like he was waiting for a fight. Laura stayed quiet, pale, hands trembling as she folded and refolded the same dish towel. At bedtime, Sophie whispered to me, "Daddy, promise you won't let them take me." I kissed her forehead. I promise. But I didn't believe myself. At midnight, Ethan crept into our room. His face was pale, his voice shaking. "Dad, I heard her again." I sat up. "Who?" He swallowed. "Sophie. She was calling from the basement, but when I checked, she was asleep." I looked at Laura. Her eyes brimmed with tears. "Michael, we have to leave, please. I don't care where. We'll go tonight." I couldn't answer. I knew leaving wouldn't change anything. At 3:15, the house went still. Then came the clunk. The bolt slid free. The door eased open, and Sophie's voice floated out, soft and pleading. "Daddy, I'm cold. Come get me." But Sophie was asleep in Laura's arms upstairs. I grabbed the flashlight, camera, and clenched Ethan's shoulder. "Stay behind me." We stepped into the basement. The air was so cold it burned my lungs. The beam of light swept across shelves, pipes, and the rusted furnace. Then, movement. In the far corner, something shifted. A figure unfolded from the shadows, taller than any man. Its limbs were stretched too long, its skin thin and gray, its face blurred like smoke. And in its arms, Sophie, or something wearing her shape. She reached out to me, eyes wide and glistening. "Daddy, help me," Ethan whispered, horrified. "That's not her." The thing's face sharpened, empty black sockets for eyes, a mouth opening far too wide. It hissed, a sound like grinding metal, and then it lunged. I shoved Ethan toward the stairs. "Run!" We scrambled up, slamming the door behind us. I threw the bolt across just as something slammed into the other side, rattling the wood so hard it cracked. Laura screamed from the bedroom, clutching the real Sophie tight against her chest. Sophie woke up crying, terrified but alive. The pounding below stopped. Silence. And then, from behind the door, the voice again, perfectly mimicking my daughter. "Daddy, why did you leave me down here?" That was the last night we stayed in that house. By morning, the car was packed. Laura didn't argue. Ethan refused to let Sophie out of his sight. We drove away, leaving everything behind. I didn't even look back. It's been 6 months. We rent a small house now. No basement, no heavy oak doors. But every night I check Sophie's room before bed. And sometimes, just sometimes, when the house is quiet, I hear it. A faint creak, the sound of a bolt sliding free, and a whisper in the dark. "Let her come down."